Hi everyone, I'm Sully from Sully Guitars, and we'd like to thank Reverb for inviting us to have a chat about all of the things that we're going to have a chat about. So, to my right, why don't you tell the kids a little bit about who you are and what you're all about?
Sure. My name's Perry Ormsby from Ormsby Guitars. We're based in Australia. We specialise in multi-scale instruments.
We have Frank Falbo.
How's it going?
It's going well. How's it going with you today?
Going well with me.
So Frank is here with the magnificent Tosin Abasi. So Tosin, since you're new to the guitar building industry, what's your favorite grit of sandpaper?
140.
140, 141, whatever it takes. It's okay. It's good.
I didn't know the amount of sanding and subsequent dust that went with it. But spending hours and hours in Frank's shop, I am now well acquainted with the airborne particulate smells of wenge, swamp ash, and maple.
Well, that's important. That's important, yeah. And that's fantastic. So, you know, we're all here. We're talking about guitar building. So, Perry, how did you get started building guitars? What was your main influence?
I built my first guitar in 2003. It basically came about a career in woodwork, and I was just tired of what we were doing, and I wanted something that was a bit more challenging, and I love guitar.
Right.
And literally just quit my job one day and decided I'm a guitar maker.
What could go wrong?
Nothing, right? Nothing at all.
So you're celebrating your 10th anniversary of building multi-scale instruments.
Yeah, we're 14 years in business, 10 years doing multi-scale almost exclusively. It's been great.
Yeah, but go back for a second to 2008.
Yep.
When you have this idea, what inspired you to not only start building multi-scale instruments, but what was it like trying to what was the buying public at the time for you? Was it a tough sell? Was it something that?
Well, actually, it wasn't even 2008. The designs existed pre-2000. It wasn't until I started building guitars that I realized that this could actually work.
Right.
And I had carpal tunnel syndrome myself, and I had a lot of clients who wanted baritone. I kind of thought maybe it's going to work, But it took 4 years to get one person to agree with that. And then from that first sale, probably another year. I mean, people thought I was crazy.
Right.
You can still see the threads on 7-string where guys are like, what the hell is this? And it's never going to work. But it did, and from then it's just progressively got bigger and bigger and bigger, and 4 years to sell one instrument to, we have pre-orders of 1,300 guitars at the moment.
That's fantastic.
Every one of them is a multi-scale. It's nuts. It's I don't want to build Strats, so
I like Fender's job.
I wanted to do something different anyway, and I think we do that with the wood selection and the colors and whatnot. But the multi-scale is just what we do.
Yeah.
You're just not interested in a regular standard fretted guitar.
Except for banjos, but we'll talk more about that.
Well, that's another business.
So, Tosin, as a player, when you started out playing guitar, how has your playing style influenced the guitars that you started out with to what you're playing now?
I think when you start playing, you just find a brand that's making the guitar that makes the most sense for you.
Sure.
Aesthetically and like playability wise. So I've been a fan of fast playing guitars, the shred stuff. And if you like advanced technique and you're not playing, I don't know, gypsy jazz or something, you're probably playing some metal.
Sure.
Right? So that further reduces your choice as a brand. And so it kind of also gave way to wanting more strings on the guitar, because if you like to play fast, you might be playing metal. Metal likes to detune. Well, if you don't want to sacrifice range, you just add a string. And that further reduces your options for guitars you can play. And I think that's the impetus probably behind why you started designing guitars, why we've decided to contribute to the availability of instruments that do the thing you want. Like you said, I mean, if you want a Strat or a Relic Strat or something
you're
good.
Than that, yeah.
The universe is supporting you. But I think as players and as builders, like identifying a niche and wanting to fill it like competently and artfully, you know. So
Sure. So you and Frank, if I'm correct, please correct me if I'm wrong. You guys started working together on the Fluence project. Is that? Talk about that a little bit, would you, Frank? Yes, we started doing that.
Yeah, so Fluence is a different new kind of pickup. You guys probably already know what it is. If you don't, you can look it up. But that's how I started. You know, that's one of the ways I interface with some of these artists. It's the way I interface with Tosin. But it's uniquely able to do different things or push the envelope, right? If the pickups were a car, this one can go faster.
Right.
It can take the corners, you know, more quickly. It has more horsepower. And so then it enables you to partner up with a driver who's capable of you know, exacerbating all of those deltas, right? Improving out these differences and actually, you know, having fun with it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we started talking about that. We were talking about some guitars we were making, and you know, here we are.
So you've gone from, you know, pushing boundaries, playing instruments that, you know, weren't necessarily super common in the market. What made you want to go take that next jump further and to say, you know, I've got some ideas here. You know, what made you want to go and start a guitar company?
I've been a guitarist, but never a guitar builder, and I would always look to luthiers to kind of fulfill my guitar dreams, you know. So, especially when it came to multiscale instruments and some ergonomic designs, I just, you know, ended up linking with a few luthiers who were already doing that stuff. But I learned along the way by speccing out guitars with them what I thought was cool. So I actually ended up designing a body shape. I was partially informed by previous builds that I had, and just aesthetic and ergonomic approaches that I thought would be like welcome to a guitar. And so that I ended up having this design. And instead of, you know, sticking with my previous business situation, I decided, like, wait, this is fully my IP. Like, I designed this guitar. I feel like it shouldn't just be one iteration. We should offer 6, 7, 8 headless, multi-scale, acoustic, bass, whatever. And that's kind of where the Abasi guitar things like really popped off.
Perry, as you know, building and getting the world of multiscale and getting that, you know, making the impact that you have on that, what are some of the things that you want to do going forward? How are some new technologies or new ways that you want to express the builds that you build?
We're going to be releasing full production Floyd Rose equipped multiscales this year. Previously, the tremolo options that have been used have, I felt, not been the best option.
Okay.
We're moving into full carbon fiber bodies, one piece, basically molded necks and bodies.
Wait, say that again?
Full 100% carbon fiber. Yeah, well, we've got a lot of things in the works that I can't really talk about at the moment, but
this is NAMM, man. You gotta tell us all the.
We've got so many new things. It's crazy. Yeah, but you know, it just pushing the. It's more about, for me, just having guitars that I would like to own. You know, we always take advice from clients and fans, but ultimately I'm the decision maker. And I think we put out some pretty cool stuff, but it's to suit what I like, you know?
Right, sure.
But yeah, we've definitely got some new stuff in the works that are coming out in the next 6 to 12 months that I think are going to be really cool. Really, really cool.
Nice. Well, that's good. So now, Frank, you know, you're no stranger to innovation yourself. And, you know, we've talked about Fluence, we've talked about Rufus Seymour Duncan. You also with Falbo Guitars, you've got a very, quite frankly, awesome bridge design. And you know, when we first met years ago, it was playing a very small, like a parlor acoustic that you had built, and it was the loudest acoustic guitar I've ever played in like the greatest way possible.
Wow.
So
thank you.
So thanks for that, and that was really cool. But so what was, as someone who, you know, you're working on a whole bunch of different things, where do you see, you know, what makes you happiest?
Okay, so one of the things that makes me happy is that I will divorce myself from the kinds of things that I like. Personally, I have my own personal preferences, but if I'm able to harness something that other people want and then come up with some solution for that. That's the kind of innovation that makes me happy. I'm a player first, I love to play. I like to play the things that I like to play. But yeah, when it comes to innovation, I like looking at really anywhere where there's like a musician who's like, I kind of don't like it when my guitar does this, or I wish it could do these two things at the same time. I love to play in that space.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter to me whether that is, I like high performance, so I like working with people who can just play the heck out of their instruments.
Sure.
Whether it's working with Yngwie or Tosin or people like that. As a player, as a listener, I like emotion. But when we're coming up with products, it's like, man, what a joy to create something that lets an artist say, I can do the thing that I was trying to do easier, faster. I can do it for a longer period of time. I can do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, or I make the sounds that I want easier. I don't have to EQ as much. I don't have to compress as much or whatever.
Sure.
But that's what I like to do. That's
Okay. Well, I think that we can all agree as builders, and something that I had realized some years ago, and it's not any kind of, oh geez, that's deep. I always wanted a guitar to look good. It needs to play well, but it also just kind of needs to get out of the way of the player.
That's a great statement. You've made that several times. That's a great statement.
And if I never say anything that sounds, well, yeah, it sounded good, I'm like, hey, but yeah, that actually makes sense. And
Even a blind squirrel.
What's that?
Even a blind squirrel.
Yeah, exactly. So as you guys are collaborating on the new guitars, is there aspects or some technological things that you've worked on in the past that you can kind of incorporate into the new models, or is that something you're kind of exploring on your own?
I would say there are. If you look at some of the earlier prototypes of his designs, they were bolt-on necks. Nothing wrong with that. Most of my guitars have bolt-on necks. But when he came to me, I was like, maybe I could do a neck joint that's more like the way that I do a neck joint, and it would be beneficial to this guitar, which, interestingly enough, is not that different than the way you do a neck joint.
Right.
But so yeah, I am getting a chance to sort of exercise a little bit with him, and even in such a way that I can't or wouldn't do with Falbo. That's kind of what I was saying about earlier,
Yeah.
So I'm free in this space, just like I'm free with Fishman to do things for all these different genres and to produce all these different products, and with Duncan and everything.
So when you're talking about the designs for the new guitars, are you looking at different body shapes or that sort of thing, or is it kind of we've laid the foundation and we're gonna 6, 7, 8s of those? Are they all multi-scales?
It's like made to measure to a degree.
Okay.
My preference is multi-scale.
Okay.
We have this design. The current design we have is like the launch. It's the starting point, but we do want to expand. But I think it's a pretty robust design. I like it. It works as a bass. It works as a six string. It works as and a lot of my favorite like modern luthiers, I think, have like kind of like a one, like the one, whether it's, I don't know, it's, and then when we talk about things like the Strat or the Les Paul, they're like the iconic, first design. So I think that's how we're approaching it. But as far as multi-scale, or if you want traditional scale, that's fine. Because we do want to cater to the person who's buying the guitar.
Right. So now, Perry, when you were coming up with the Ormsby Multiscale, what was, it's like seeing different multi-scale guitars. There's not, like with like a certain guitars that you got 25.5 scale. That's what that is. It's a standard. 24 3/4. It's a standard. Whereas on the multi-scales, like the fans are adjustable. Even on some of your own guitars.
Where did we come up with that?
Yeah, you're like throwing a dart.
Yeah. What we did is we basically 25.5 inch scale and worked from there. Then I studied players or clients' movements of their body and their hands, where they feel comfortable with their guitar sitting, what their arm length is, what angle they play the F bar chord with. And I took all that and spent years adjusting it to work out that the 9th fret was the comfortable resting position of your hand. So that therefore will be parallel with your fingers as you're resting, and then design everything around that. So the strap button position of all of our guitars relative to the 12th fret is the same. So they could clip on any strap onto any model, and that nut is exactly the same distance no matter what guitar it is. The scales were developed by working out, right, what is too far to go at one angle, where do we want that angle to sit that feels comfortable with your wrist. And for guys that have carpal tunnel especially, and you're bending that wrist, they need to try and straighten that out. So what angle does that feel comfortable or not comfortable? And then at the bridge end, where does your hand, what angle does your arm come down based on all of that? And therefore that is the angle we need from that, and that's where we got the scale lengths from. And then we made some minor adjustments just to make sure that the tension was right. But that's basically, it was all based around the human form and the average of 30 guys that I took photos of and studied how they stand with their guitars and which models they have. And if we put this same one guitar in all of their hands and say, put your hands where it feels most natural, and they all put their hand in the same spot. Right. That's where we want the neutral fret to be, etc.
And so with various hardware availability, especially in multi-scales, has that had to play much of a factor?
It was hard in the beginning because no one was doing anything. We started off with some a German manufacturer and worked with them on developing some single string hardware, and we've since moved over to, we've now got the buying power, I guess, to be able to talk to larger companies and say, look, this is what we want to do, and we want to develop it from scratch. And we've been doing that, and we're continuing to do that. So now we have standardized bridges, which now we're offering to our luthiers, and they can buy a kit. So they can get their multi-scale started. They've got their fretboard, they've got their special truss rod, they've got their bone nut, they've got their bridge, they've got their pickups. So it helps all those guys. They're our competitors, but man, I want everyone to have these guitars. So let's help them out, you know. But you know, we've recently developed with Hipshot a new headless unit. We worked a lot on the ease of tuning. So a lot of headless guitars, it's very hard to tune them. The friction in tuning that string up, we worked a lot on that, and to get that really so smooth. And you know, it's constant. We're always looking to how we can make it better.
Sure.
But I think our stuff's pretty good now where it sits, and now we're expanding on that.
Okay. So for Frank and Tosin, when you were coming up with, you know, the scale for the guitars, what was the process for you? Is it just basically, this is what I'm used to, this is what I like, or I like this aspect, or I can just shut up and let you answer the question?
You know, multi-scale guitars are spoken about from an ergonomic perspective often, but I think temperament also plays a role. Like where you're tuning the string, what is a comfortable length of string for that note? And I think that is kind of a good perspective to take on deciding on what your scales will be. Sure. I think treble strings are happy in the 24.7 to 25.5 range. I think we're selling on 25.5. And then I've been an 8-string player for like a decade, and I can get away with a drop E sounding strong with a 27-inch scale length. And I find that 1.5 inches is a ratio that isn't like too jarring. Right. And so the other factor would be where you place the vertical fret, because that'll dictate how pronounced the splay is in your bass or in your treble. So I'm a guy who does a lot of tapping, and playing in the upper register visually can be disorienting if the splay is too pronounced there. I find that it's a bit easier to manage in the bass range, but you know, for rhythm players, they don't want to feel like they're like, you know, in a fun house or whatever. Right. So I think for us, the 8th fret seems to be the most neutral point to where you can get your ratio to be optimal without inflicting a bunch of you know, disorienting slanted frets on a traditional player. Sure.
Are there any like misconceptions about multi-scales or, you know, 7-string, 8-string guitars that you would like to take this time and put to rest and say it's gonna be okay?
Look, I think a lot of people think that they are difficult to play. Our experience with, over 1,000 multiscales now, I think we've had 2 clients that said they just couldn't get along with it. Most people, the exact same thing, 5 to 10 minutes, they don't even notice it anymore.
Okay.
They have more of a problem going back to a standard scale, and you're playing a multiscale, you've got your new guitar, you play it for a week exclusively because it's your new baby, and then they go back to their standard scale and it feels more unusual that first time replaying that guitar.
Okay.
That is the absolute common feedback that we get 99% of the time. People build it up in their minds that they'll be harder to play, or they're going to have problems getting the tension of the strings right, or it's all been worked out.
Okay. Greg, Tosin?
Yeah, I mean, I think that having the parallel fret or perpendicular to string line at 8 or 9, somewhere in that range, does produce an instrument that is very easy to transition to. And so the earlier multiscale designs might have been centered at the 12th. Like, we'll just park it in the middle and we'll go out from there. And that's where this very novel design concept began, but yet as time goes by and it begins to proliferate into the players, sphere of influences, you get people they have different thoughts on it. And like I said, it's kind of where things have ended up. You even had a prototype that was at the 12th again, and it wasn't that you couldn't play it or anything. That was cool too, but right?
Yeah, I've had a few different vertical fret placements, and I found that the 8th fret in that area seems to be the most neutral.
Sure.
I feel like there should be an element of invisibility to how it feels, and you're talking about not noticing it, or if you don't look down. I think design should be 99% invisible. There should be a level of you'd have to turn your attention to it to notice it's there, because it's done so well that it's seamless. And that's how I feel about fan fret guitars. I think everyone's different. But I think anyone is intending to do multi-scale, and they're intending to have, maybe more than 6 strings on the guitar, is also an individual who is comfortable with approaching the instrument freshly. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think we're at, and this is something that people have said, that we're in kind of a golden age of guitar building, in that because there are so many options, and it's nice to have new designs like what you guys have been doing, because as more of that happens, we become socialized to it, I guess, for lack of a better term. And it's like, well, it's not. Oh, my friend Dave has one, and I like Dave. I think it'll be all right, so I can try that too. So I think it is good, and I think it is really great, to have guys like you that are doing this and pushing things forward, because it's. I think we all just kind of win at the end.
Yeah, I think you put it perfectly. As someone who wanted these instruments to exist, and as a guitar, you're just like, all right, I'm going to make them. And that's the drive behind why you do what you do.
We just didn't give up.
Yeah.
Just didn't give up. And it was hard in the beginning. Like I said, 4 years to sell the first one, and we copped it. 4 years. I mean, I'm not that old, mate. Come on. And we copped it. I had other luthiers saying, mate, you just ruined your business. But we're about to do a 10th anniversary replication of that one guitar, and I'm pretty sure we've sold out. We haven't even announced what color they're going to be.